tried and true. Indiana, oh Indiana, Indiana, we're all for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Zaltzberg. I am a Bloomington Rotarian and, most importantly, your MC for the evening. On behalf of Bloomington's 3 Rotary clubs, I'd like to welcome you to the 6th Annual Bloomington Rotary Toast, which is being held virtually for the first time ever. We are so glad you could join us this evening to honor Bob HAMMEL. In every way, Bob reflects the values of Rotary International and our motto of service above self. We are inspired by his good work in our community, and we are delighted to celebrate him tonight. We are happy to welcome so many friends of Rotary and of Bob gathered here in Bloomington and around the world to celebrate. I'd like to extend a special thanks to our Diamond, Platinum, and Gold level sponsors. Their generosity and commitment to our community gives us the opportunity to honor Bob and show support for many charitable organizations in our community. Our Diamond level sponsors are Premier Healthcare Foundation and Blue Ace Media. Our Platinum level sponsor is Lakeside Art Glass and Mark Dayton, MD, PhD. Our Gold level sponsors are Cassidy Electrical Contractors, Smithville Fiber, Baird, Matthews Snyder Team, Clendenning Johnson & Bohr, Blooming Boards, Teeters and Quackenbush Wealth Management Group, Alejandra and Suhail Haddad, Gary and Janet Taylor, Curry Family Foundation, and Steve and Connie Ferguson. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our blue level sponsors. You can see all of them listed in your program and on our website, rotarytoast.com. Without the support and generosity of all of our sponsors, we certainly would not be here tonight celebrating Bob. As we begin our program, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Rotary and the organizations this event supports. Rotary is committed to supporting education, promoting peace, fighting disease, providing clean water, helping mothers and children, and growing local economies. Here in Bloomington, the 3 Rotary clubs work hard to ensure that we are exemplifying these values in all that we do. This year, we collaborated in efforts to better our community in a variety of capacities, including providing free flu vaccines to individuals and families experiencing homelessness. Half of the proceeds from tonight's event will benefit the 3 local Rotary clubs' charitable causes. The other half will benefit Bob's chosen charity, the Hoosier Hills Food Bank. Here's more about that agency.
Hi, I'm Julio Alonso. I'm Executive Director and CEO of Hoosier Hills Food Bank in Bloomington. We collect and distribute food from all sorts of sources and provide it to over 100 nonprofit agencies in a 6-county region. Hoosier Hills Food Bank was founded in 1982 by a small group of folks here in Bloomington who saw that there was food that was being wasted while there were people that needed food. Since then, we've grown significantly. We distributed about 400 pounds of food that first year in 1982. Last year was a record for us. We hit over 5 million pounds for the first time in our history. And this year, we're probably going to hit over 6 million pounds. So the food bank started basically in a parking lot and then moved to a couple of different locations over the years on Washington Street, on Packing House Lane. For a very long time, we were located at 615 North Fairview Street until about 2008 when we were able to purchase our current facility on Industrial Park Drive on the west side of Bloomington. That doubled our capacity and storage space, and we've in fact even increased that by purchasing the building across from us last year. The timing of that purchase was absolutely critical because when COVID hit, things exploded, and we had to collect and distribute a lot more food than we had in the past, and we really needed the extra space. Hoosier Hills Food Bank collects food mostly from donated sources, retail, wholesale, restaurants, places like that around our community, and then distributes that food out both through our direct service programs, which are mobile pantries, and senior box programs, and to partner agencies, food pantries, soup kitchens, youth shelters in a 6-county region here in South Central Indiana. We also get food from the Feeding America Network. They provide us with access to national donors who have excess product that we can get if we pay the transportation costs to bring it here. So in addition to those and our local donations from retailers and wholesalers and restaurants, we're able to provide a lot of food out into the community from various different sources. This we call our USDA room because most of the product that comes in and out through this room is through USDA commodity programs. This we call our member agency room because it's normally where agencies would be coming in 5 days a week to pick up food for their programs. Unfortunately, because of the COVID pandemic, we had to eliminate agency on-site shopping and move to a system where we pre-staged everything for the agencies, set it outside, and they pick it up there. During a normal year, this floor would probably be bustling right now with agencies, but we've shifted to a system where we're providing them food and appointments 2 at a time. I've been fortunate to know Bob HAMMEL going back to my days as director of the community kitchen about 20 or so years ago when he and Julie would always come and volunteer for us. And obviously I'm well aware of his accomplishments as a sports writer and editor here in the Bloomington community. He's essentially an icon and a legend, and that status is well deserved. Bob and I became even a little bit closer when Hoosier Hills Food Bank took over the community book fair about 6 years ago. Bob is one of the biggest fans of that book fair event and is always out there helping us out every year. Comes out early, goes through the sports section, finds books for us that should probably be priced a little bit higher than we have them, autographs any of his books that are out there for us, and it's just always a great presence at the book fair. He's been a big supporter of the event and of Hoosier Hills Food Bank for a long time, and we really appreciate his commitment to ending hunger in our community. The timing of Hoosier Hills Food Bank being chosen as the recipient charity for this year's Rotary Toast couldn't come at a better time, quite frankly. We had to cancel our book fair, which is normally scheduled for October. That's our second largest fundraiser, and we've seen our demand explode this year. So the funds that we're able to receive through Rotary will definitely help us get through what's been a very difficult year and be able to purchase even more food to distribute to people who are hungry in our community. Hoosier Hills Food Bank is really honored and grateful to be part of this year's Rotary Toast, particularly because Bob HAMMEL is the honoree. I know of Bob's commitment to hunger relief and that it goes back at least 20 years to my time as director of Community Kitchen, when every Thanksgiving Bob and Julie could be found serving meals and washing dishes at the kitchen. So if it's not too corny, I'd like to raise a can in Bob's honor and say cheers in recognition of all the meals that this year's Rotary Toast is going to provide to hungry Hoosiers in our community.
It is now my privilege to introduce you to our honoree. For more than 50 years, Bob HAMMEL has told the stories of our athletes and in the process created a sense of pride and accomplishment in our community. Bob covered the 1968 Rose Bowl, IU's perfect basketball season in 1976, and subsequent national championships in 1981 and 1987. And he covered 5 Olympic Games, starting with Munich in 1972. He also covered thousands of college and high school athletes and sports events. He was named Indiana Sports Writer of the Year by the National Sports Media Association an amazing 17 times. Bob received the 1995 Kurt Gowdy Award from the National Basketball Hall of Fame and the 1996 Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame Silver Medal Award for Distinguished Service. He also has been awarded the Burt McGrain Award by the College Football Hall of Fame, and he was inducted into the Indiana Journalism Hall of Fame in 1997. He has authored 14 books, including his memoir. 6 of the books are on IU basketball and Bob Knight, and 2 are on Revolutionary Cook Group founder Bill Cook. Bob told the story of legendary Negro American Baseball League All-Star George Shively, buried in an unmarked grave at Rose Hill Cemetery. Bob led an effort to place a significant gravestone for Shively and markers for his family and 5 other African Americans in the same previously unmarked plot. He also pulled together a well-attended dedication. Our first toaster this evening has known Bob his entire life. Bob's son, Dr. Richard Hammel. Bob suspects it might be as much roast as toast.
Greetings from Westchester, Ohio, a suburb of Cincinnati. And we're located just west of Kings Island Amusement Park, a place that I think most people in Bloomington would be well familiar with. For those who don't recognize or know me, I'm Richard Robert Hammel, the firstborn child of my parents. I've been around with them for 61 of their 62 years of marriage, and so glad to be able to participate in this event and provide a toast to my father and on behalf of our family. And what I would like you to know in terms about Dad is that I think he's a great model for the Rotary motto of service above self. And let me share a little bit about that and a little bit about Dad and back that up. As far as with Dad, I think one of the things that I admire deeply with Dad over the years is that he's a very humble, generous person with his time, and what you see in terms of with him is that he's the real deal in terms of same person that you see both in public and in private, and always willing to engage with people in terms of when they would come and approach him in terms of about questions or comments about sports and all, and talking to them about IU and athletics, and so that's always interesting to see different people that enjoyed his writing and enjoy his perspectives on what he covered as well. What it comes to, and what I'd like to highlight is a little bit about what Dad's done, at least that I know of, in terms of his service to the community. And I can certainly recall many times that he's been involved with different service organizations and with the university in terms of participating in different events and as a speaker or as an MC to help with varying activities and fundraising events in terms of with the community. What I think has also been some visible things that he's done that have a more recent note is his whole effort in terms of getting recognition for George Shively, helping to establish a gravestone marker for his burial area in terms of in Bloomington. My dad had somehow remembered about having interviewed another African American person that had played in the Negro Leagues, and he recalled that person had talked about George Shively being one of the best players he'd ever played against, and he looked that up and found out he'd grown up in Bloomington and had been buried in Bloomington, and found to his horror that he really didn't have an adequate tombstone or marker anymore in terms of at his gravesite. So my father set to get that done right and helped spur the community into making donations and being able to have a proper recognition ceremony for George Shively. There are historical markers that the Negro League has in honor of top players that can be sent to burial sites for those former players, and so Dad played a key pivotal role for that. Another significant historical event that he's participated in is with the person, Mr. Graham, who helped to write a biography on Bill Garrett. My father helped with him to look at getting a Indiana State Historical Museum plaque put in front of the 7th Street Fieldhouse where Bill Garrett played basketball at IU, and helped to break down the color barrier that had been a gentleman's agreement in Big Ten basketball, not allowing any African American players to play for any of the Big Ten schools. And my dad is currently still working on getting Bill Garrett similar recognition with the International Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, and hopefully that will soon be to fruition as well and have him inducted into that Hall of Fame. As to other things that Dad has also done is that he has participated in being a deacon in the United Presbyterian Church, the church that he's belonged to for all these many years in Bloomington since 1966, so you're talking now in terms of 54 years. He's also been the local historian in Bloomington for certainly sports, and he's done that at a level with the IU Athletic Hall of Fame as well as for the Monroe County Sports Hall of Fame, and also has been a volunteer with the Monroe County Historical Society as well. So Dad loves to read, and Dad loves to continue to learn history and all. But with that also, in terms of giving time to his community, and for the many years that he was a sports writer and writing a column for 30 years in terms of 6 days a week, and providing people with his perspectives on sports activity in Bloomington, both at the university level and other levels, professional and high school. It's been an honor to see how well he's been accepted and beloved in terms of by people in Bloomington. And so, Dad, thanks for all the memories and all the fine things you've done, both in your professional life as well as what you've done for the community. And I know that you'll keep continuing to do that. At 84, you don't seem to be slowing down, at least from my eyes. And we really appreciate the model that you provide in terms of, for my sister and I, in terms of as we go into those retirement years, that you give us a great example of how it is to continue to be of service to others and to be able to continue to give back to your community. So thank you, Dad.
Thank you, Richard. Our next toasters are Carolyn Stewart Walters and her sister, Kay Stewart. They are the daughters of the late Bloomington Herald Telephone publisher, Perry Stewart.
We've had the privilege of knowing you since you landed in Bloomington way back in 1966, and we're really sorry we can't see you tonight, Bob. As long as we've known you, we don't ever think we've seen you in a tuxedo.
Our connections run deep to the time our dad, Perry Stewart, who is editor and publisher of the Herald Telephone, lured you to Bloomington. From Little B-Town, he envisioned his paper going big and deep in the world of sports coverage. He made good on his promise to give you a front row seat to the very best of sports, every home and away IU game, the NCAA Final Fours, even the Olympics, regardless of where they were held. Not many big city sports writers get to cover all that. At the time, a well-financed competitor was starting a newspaper war with the HT, and our dad, who began his career as a sports writer, knew the battle would probably be won with top-notch sports coverage. News came first, of course, but sports was more than a pastime. You like to say you landed the sports editor job as a B-team player, that our dad ran out of good candidates willing to leave big city papers. But really, from the tip-off to the buzzer beater, you were an all-star as a sports writer, a community and IU champion, and family friend, the best friend a family could ever have in good and sad times.
You knew our dad only a few years before he died, but you stayed with our family and in our lives, and it's almost been 55 years. Our dad was an intense competitor, and he won that newspaper war, especially baseball and college basketball, and he met his match in you, Bob. We remember the frequent $1 bets you had with our dad over sports games and the calls between the two of you, ribbing each other about your little wagers. You all shared other similarities, both from small towns, humble beginnings, and with a drive and intensity to be the best. And boy, did you ever succeed. The stars aligned around the vision to have the best sports coverage from the best sports writer, because at that time, IU was emerging as a sports powerhouse. There was the Rose Bowl in 1968. There was IU swimming. IU had the best swim team in the world, and as you calculated and reported, the best team of all time, regardless of the sport. You were at the 1972 Olympics in Munich, the terrorist attack. IU's Mark Spitz, the world's greatest swimmer. Your coverage went international, and of course you were courtside for IU's resurgence to basketball glory. Your prolific output of insightful coverage and commentary is in the record books. You've received a bounty of awards and recognitions for a job well done, and nobody would have been happier about your success than Perry Stewart.
But we know you're way more than that guy, the sports intellect who knows his X's and O's, and the writer who can string words together in award-winning prose. For so many young reporters and writers, you have been a mentor and sounding board. And because of your guidance, many of them have gone on to successful careers as authors and as reporters and sports writers at big city papers and networks in major markets. You have always had a curious nature, the ability to see the good in people, and the sweet humor of life, both inside and outside the sports world. We can still laugh about the chaos that erupted at the kids' table in the Stewart home when your family joined ours for your first Thanksgiving in Bloomington. And there were also babysitting adventures for us at the HAMMEL house. We're sure that in those years, you and our dad helped each other get through stressful and demanding work. You could reflect on what went right or wrong and find something to laugh about. Your friendship and loyalty helped give him the strength and support to continue working during a long illness and helped our mother and the 5 Stewart sisters carry on.
Your personal and professional sides were very much in evidence when our dad died in 1970. It was the day of the state high school basketball championship game, so you were in Indianapolis, consumed with reporting, writing, deadlines, game coverage. When you received the news, you took the time that day to write a beautiful column about Perry Stewart, the man who lured you to Bloomington and became your good friend. That column told his story with humor about your relationship, leaving us with good memories. And in true style, that day you also gave readers extensive, insightful, beautifully written coverage of Indiana's state basketball championship.
So, Bob, even though we can't see you in person in your tuxedo tonight, we are toasting you for being the great guy that you are, for all you have accomplished in your career, for all you have done for the city of Bloomington and IU, and for being the best friend a family could ever have. We are forever grateful. Thank you, Bob.
Cheers to you, Bob, from both of us and from the Stewart sisters, Gail, Judy, and Nancy.
Thank you, Carolyn and Kay. Now, Mayor Hamilton would like to say a few words from City Hall.
Thank you so much, Bob Z, and I am so delighted to be here with you. Bob HAMMEL, old friend, I want to congratulate you and bring, on behalf of the whole city, this proclamation to you. Whereas, Bob HAMMEL is a longtime sports writer and author who has touched the lives of an untold number of readers through his stories of our athletes and created a sense of pride and accomplishment in our community. And whereas for more than 50 years, Bob covered many notable sports events, such as the 1968 Rose Bowl, 5 Olympics, including the 1972 Munich Olympics, IU's perfect basketball season in 1976 and subsequent national championships in 1981 and 1987. And whereas Bob has also covered hundreds of high school and college athletes and sports events and was named Indiana Sports Writer of the Year by the National Sports Media Association, wait for it, 17 times. And whereas over the course of his illustrious career, Bob has received numerous well-deserved awards and recognitions, including the 1995 Kurt Gowdy Award from the National Basketball Hall of Fame, the 1996 Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame Silver Medal Award for Distinguished Service, the Burt McGrain Award by the College Football Hall of Fame, and was inducted into the Indiana Journalism Hall of Fame in 1997. And whereas, being a prolific writer, he has authored 14 books, including his memoir, Last Press Bus Out of Middletown, 6 books on IU basketball and Bob Knight, and 2 on Revolutionary Cook Group founder Bill Cook. And whereas, in 2014 and 15, Bob led an effort to place a significant gravestone for legendary Negro American Baseball League All-Star George Shively and his family, who were buried in what was previously an unmarked plot, and organized a well-attended dedication at Rose Hill Cemetery. And whereas Bob and his wife Julie support many community organizations and causes, including the Hoosier Hills Food Bank and Book Fair, the Monroe County History Center, and the Monroe County Sports Hall of Fame, and have awarded annual IU scholarships in his name. And whereas, in recognition of his extraordinary contributions to our community, the 3 Bloomington Rotary Clubs are honoring Bob at this 6th annual virtual Rotary Toast on Friday, November 6th. And whereas Bob has selected the Hoosier Hills Food Bank as the recipient of half of the proceeds from the toast, with the other half supporting the 3 Bloomington Rotary Club's ongoing local programs and initiatives. And whereas, for all Bob's contributions to Bloomington and Indiana, Bob is a community treasure. Now, therefore, I, John Hamilton, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, do hereby declare November 6, 2020, as Bob HAMMEL Day in Bloomington, Indiana. You can see it's officially signed right here too to make it real. Bob, congratulations, so many honors. We are so pleased to have the chance to join you. I want to just raise a glass in your honor and say, Mazel Tov, let's toast Bob HAMMEL. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor Hamilton. Now it's my pleasure to present your proclamation to the real Bob HAMMEL.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wow.
Our next toaster is a great friend of Bob's and IU football's career leader in rushing yards, carries, points, and touchdowns. Please welcome Anthony Thompson.
I consider it a tremendous honor and privilege to have been asked to say a few words about someone I have looked up to since I arrived to Indiana University, and that is Mr. Bob HAMMEL. I came to Bloomington in 1986 from Terre Haute, Indiana. One of the first people I met was Bob HAMMEL. Bob has always been a great sports writer. People loved his work, but Bob has always received many awards during his illustrious career. 16-time Indiana Sports Writer of the Year, National Sportscaster and Sports Writer. He's won that award 4 times. Inducted into the U.S. Basketball Writers Association Hall of Fame, the National Basketball Hall of Fame, and the College Football Hall of Fame. The list goes on and on. As I stated before, I came to Bloomington as an 18-year-old kid. I was introduced to Bob HAMMEL just after a short time on campus. We took an instant liking to each other. I observed his professionalism, his positive character, and his easygoing personality. As a freshman, I started a few games at running back and enjoyed some success. I can remember a particular game starting against Wisconsin, and had a pretty decent game. And Bob wrote this big old article about me the next day. And I sent that article home to my mom. And as natural, she would call and talk about the article. So she called me and she said, Anthony, I saw your name only 2 times in the article. But this guy, AT, he's pretty good, isn't he? I said, Mom, that's me, AT. She said, when did you change your name? I said, I didn't. Bob HAMMEL, the sports writer here, he refers to me as AT. And my mom, we both chuckled, and the rest is history. From that time forward, I've been known as AT in Bloomington, also in Terre Haute. Since I arrived in Bloomington until today, my relationship with Bob HAMMEL has gone from sports writer covering me as a student athlete to a friend. He has been a great role model, not only to me, but to many others like myself. Bob, 3 or 4 years ago, I had an opportunity to go to Italy to be part of a wedding. And every time the father would toast the bride and groom, he would say this at the end of the toast. Centennia. Centa means 100. Nia means years in Italian. And so, Bob, here's to you. May you live 100 years or more. Centennia.
Thank you, Anthony. Next, the president of Cook Group and Cook Medical, Pete Yonkman, is joining us from his corporate offices.
Good evening. I hope you're all enjoying the event so far. I realize that it's a little bit different than in past years, but I do appreciate the efforts of Rotary Club to continue the tradition of honoring those people who have made a difference in our community. I spoke at this event 2 years ago when Connie and Steve were honored, and I'm told that I may have misunderstood the intent of the event at that time, and I was actually supposed to toast Connie and Steve and not roast them. I would say that I've learned my lesson, but I'm not going to make any promises. So tonight, we're honoring a special member of our community, Bob HAMMEL. You can see him on my shirt here. Many of you probably know Bob through his work in sports journalism. In fact, he's one of the most awarded and recognized journalists in our state. For example, he was awarded the Indiana Sports Writer of the Year award 17 times, which sounds like an amazing accomplishment, until you realize that it was so long ago that there were really only 2 sports being played in Indiana: Indiana basketball and Bob Knight. Now, never wanting to be upstaged in the granting of awards, Indiana University has recognized Bob HAMMEL numerous times. Interestingly, the one award the university has never bothered to grant Bob is an actual diploma. He never graduated from IU, but they've honored him many times. But I understand, Bob had more important things to do. By the time he would have been a sophomore in college, he was already doing the job he loved and making a name for himself in Indiana journalism. It's not Bob's legendary sports writing skills that I want to talk about tonight, but rather another part of Bob's career, which is the work on 2 biographies of another Bloomington legend, Bill Cook. Like many situations I'm sure Bob has found himself in over the years, his commission to write the story of Bill's life happened almost by accident. Here's how I heard the story anyways. Bill drove Bob down to the French Lick and West Baden hotels to give him a tour of the newly renovated spaces. And by the time they arrived back in the office at Bloomington, Bill gave direction to clear out an office for Bob to begin working on the next day on his new biography. For any of you that knew Bill, that kind of quick decision wasn't unusual. And if it rattled Bob at all, it never really showed. Bob moved into his new office immediately and started researching, interviewing, and writing Bill's story. And there's another impressive fact about Bob that you should know. And it's that he managed to hang on to that office for 10 years after that book was published. Now, I can barely keep my office at Cook, so I have to say hats off to you, Bob, for that accomplishment. Over the years, employees would come up to me and they'd say, I don't really understand, does Bob actually work for Cook? And my response was, I honestly don't know, but we were happy to have him here. What Bob has shown me over the years of reading his work and seeing his approach to writing up close is that he's truly committed to the full depth of the story he's telling. He doesn't take things at a surface level. He's not flippant. He doesn't make assumptions. He asks questions, and he seeks to understand the person or the topic that he's working on. And when I pick up a paper today or scroll through the internet, I find myself missing writers like Bob who care about their craft and have enough integrity to think before they write. Bob's biographies of Bill's tell the full depth of a man as a human being, a leader, and a visionary. There were other writers before Bob who attempted to profile Bill, but invariably, they only saw the dated cardigan sweater, or they heard his simple, direct style of speaking and assumed that Bill was just an anomaly from a flyover country, or a man who was lucky in business, or some kind of eccentric from the corn state of Indiana. But Bob was different. He sought to understand Bill as a fully formed human, his values, his passion for reinventing medicine, his understanding of human nature, and his deep commitment to helping people improve their lives. I know that Bill's family and the entire executive team here at Cook appreciate that we have this carefully told story that preserves our heritage and our culture for future generations of the company. This trust in Bob to tell Bill's story with authenticity is also evident because Gail asked Bob to then write a second volume of the Bill Cook story following Bill's death in 2011. And if you take this appreciation for Bob's approach and apply it across the full body of his work, only then do you begin to understand that whole sections of our state's history would be incomplete without Bob and his dedication to his craft. So Bob, I want to say sincerely, congratulations and thank you for telling our stories. I hope you have a wonderful evening and enjoy this well-deserved honor.
Thank you, Pete. In Rotary, one of the highest recognitions we have is to be a Paul Harris Fellow. Here is what it means to be a Paul Harris Fellow.
The Paul Harris Fellowship is named for Paul Harris, who founded Rotary more than 100 years ago. The fellowship was established to honor his legacy of service and giving. The Paul Harris Fellow is one of the most prestigious awards in Rotary. Paul Harris Fellows embody Rotary International's motto, service above self, and help us to do more good in the world, eradicating polio, fighting AIDS and other diseases, and providing clean water and access to health care. You can spot a Paul Harris Fellow by their lapel pin, signifying that they have joined a unique group of notables from around the world, including Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Prince Charles, Indira Gandhi, Pope John Paul II, President Jimmy Carter, Dr. Jonas Salk, Senator Richard Lugar, and Representative Lee Hamilton. In preparation for this evening's pin presentation to Bob Hammel, over 70 local Rotarian Paul Harris Fellows gathered at Indiana University's Memorial Stadium. On a beautiful, sunny September afternoon, with appropriate physical distancing, we created a human rotary wheel on the field. Young and old, we gathered together to celebrate fellowship and to support Rotary's goal of world peace and understanding. Bob Hammel, we gladly welcome you into the ranks of Paul Harris Fellows from Bloomington and around the world.
In appreciation for the many ways in which you exemplify Rotary's motto of service above self, and on behalf of the 175 women and men of the 3 Bloomington Rotary Clubs, it is my honor and pleasure to recognize you today as a Paul Harris Fellow. On behalf of the trustees of the Rotary Foundation, it is my pleasure to present to you these emblems of a Paul Harris Fellow. First, the pin. And the certificate.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Rotary. Of course I'll wear that pin, and I'll wear it with pride and great memory of a wonderful night. And I think the first time anybody has ever called me a scholar.
It is now my pleasure to introduce New York Times best-selling author, Michael Carita.
Hi, this is Michael Carita, and you can count on Bob Hammel's protege to somehow screw up Bob Hammel's event. I apologize, I'm out here in the wilds of Maine. I have no tuxedo, I have no formal film crew, but what I do have is an enormous amount of gratitude and admiration for the man of the hour, Bob Hammel. And knowing Bob as well as I do, I feel as if he would be fine with the wardrobe problem, considering I'm surrounded with books. And our relationship, our friendship, began in a room filled with books. That was Bob's basement. I called it the lair of an office, his lair in the Herald Times building there on South Walnut. And I met Bob when I was just 16 years old, and he didn't know anything about me. And suddenly I arrived in his office, courtesy of an introduction through a friend, and let him know that I wanted to be a writer. And any sane person would have offered a few platitudes and some encouragement and sent me on my way. Bob did a lot more than that. And I remember a lot of things from that first meeting, and certainly a lot of things from our sessions in that basement office and over so many years since. But what stands out to me from that first meeting was the succinct phrase with which Bob greeted my intrusion on his time and on his schedule. And he said, "How can I help?" My guess is if you go around Bloomington, you will hear this anecdote time after time after time. Whether it is mentoring a young writer, or raising money for a food bank, or endowing a scholarship, or creating a library, or seeing that a facility at Indiana University is renamed in honor of Bill Garrett, you're going to hear people say over and over again, "Bob HAMMEL told me, how can I help?" And then Bob HAMMEL came through on that. And that's a very special legacy. It's very important, it's worth honoring. We should also talk about Bob's career as a writer, but I feel as if the audience is pretty familiar with that. We know how spoiled we were by that Hall of Fame level of journalism that existed in our town for decades. And the way I know that this town appreciates just how spoiled they were, I can not even begin to tell you how many times people come up to me across these last few years and referencing, usually I might add a very good writer, I hear, "Well, he or she is no Bob HAMMEL." Guess what, guys? There was only one. There is only one. We only got one Bob HAMMEL. And anyone who had the privilege of knowing him and having that friendship is very grateful for it. I think the community is very grateful for that level of writing. What I would like to point out to the community, though, is something that has its roots in one of my earliest lessons with Bob. It's a William Zinsser quote. Zinsser said, "Hard writing makes easy reading. Easy writing makes hard reading." And when you think about that, Bloomington enjoyed for decades that Hall of Fame, best in the country brand of sports writing, and it always went down pretty easy. Whether it was a column, a game report, some bit of breaking news that we didn't know about. And what Bloomington might not have seen is just how hard Bob worked to achieve that easy reading experience. It's the product of sacrificed hours of sleep, sacrificed social opportunities, forsaken pleasures and hobbies. It's the product of sacrifice that is the cost of a man pursuing his craft to do the best job that he possibly can for his community. And we were on the receiving end of that for a long time. And I think that's a humbling thing, and it's an inspiring thing. And now it's my job to try to demonstrate that I learned anything at all from Bob's many lessons on the importance of brevity and wind this up. So I'm thinking of his signature four-word phrase, "How can I help?" And I'm going to try to match that, 4 words, and say, "Cheers to you, Bob." But then I'm going to remember that Bob doesn't drink red wine, doesn't really drink wine at all. I do, however, have a flavor of red that is Bob's favorite. It's red pen. I can assure you he loves this flavor of red. And so we'll get this "cheers to you" 4 words down. We could go just "cheers, Bob." Pretty good. We could go "cheers." I mean, we're down to 1 word and it gets the point across. But then I've got to think about clarity too. Clarity is a big deal to Bob. And the clarity of this message, the one I'm trying to share with him and with our community, is going to require 2 words. I'm sorry, Bob, but it will. Those 2 words are thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I would now like to invite 2019 Bloomington Rotary Toast honoree Carrie Curry to offer the community toast.
Bob, it is with more gratitude than you can imagine that I get to do this final toast for you. Your honorees have shared such incredible stories and memories honoring you. For me, you have been a mentor, an encourager, and a constant presence in my life for so many years. I've watched you impact lives through your work and your faith walk. I was so fortunate to spend an incredible weekend with you several years ago on a men's retreat that I will always remember. You made everyone you met feel valued and loved. Recently, I've gotten to watch you invest in lives at the Uptown Cafe too. I'll forever treasure the books you've written, and each of the ones I have are signed by you with words that I will always cherish. So let me raise a glass to you, Bob, for being a leader worth following and a man of integrity. Love you so much. Here's to you.
All the best to you, Bob. Here's to you.
So here's to you, Bob.
Cheers.
Congratulations, Bob Hammel.
I deeply appreciate what each of you who have spoken tonight has said, and probably even more what you could have said but didn't. And I'm grateful to you of Rotary for making this not just a night that feeds my ego, but far, far better feeds hungry people. I must admit some disbelief and outright embarrassment at the extent of your kindness toward a guy for doing what essentially was his job, his highly privileged job. When I finally sat down to write a book about myself, can you think of anything more egocentric than that? I wanted it to be a thank you to people in my family, in my profession, in my life. People certainly not limited to, but wonderfully represented by you who spoke tonight. You Rotarians, in your general mission, and notably in what you unite to do locally every year in this particular event, embody everything that has always hovered in my mind, probably put there and patiently, insistently nurtured there by my mother, almost from birth. In these days of cynical, it is what it is dismissal, Mom showed me and taught me we are what we are, what we truly are, not what we pretend to be or even want to be. We are what we do. Then life picked up where Mom left off and showed me we also are what others allow us to be, help us to be, encourage us to be, and open the door and enable us to be. If man needs any confirmation that there is a God or something that gives a divine orderliness to the existence and the continuation of this mess we call humanity, it is that very element above and way beyond the independence we proudly defend to the even greater interdependence that we far too often don't even recognize. Think about yourself. Think about the intimate, relatively small world around you. I'll do it for you by talking about myself. There are a few things I can do pretty well. There are many, many more things that I can't, that I have to ask or to hire, in some way depend on others to do for me. And the divine part, the godly, almost haunting counterpart is that someone I need is out there, available to me. If people design people, we would have about as many varieties as we have, say, cars. Whatever designed us, created an infinite number of varieties of talents, of skills, which left us our challenge in what we called civilization, to find and utilize and reward, and as a nation and a world profit from those innate, special, personal skills that essentially everyone has. If we can ever come close to managing that, or even recognizing that, we can inject in what we call humanity a personal pride that leads to accomplishment, that leads to respect, that leads to generosity, that leads to a state of existence way, way better than today's bitter, hateful competitiveness gets us. Within myself, I wanted to start with that autobiography, that book, with acknowledging how dependent the good things in my life were on someone else giving me what in most cases was a totally unearned chance. You honor me tonight for what you think I did with those chances. I thank you for that. I sincerely and deeply appreciate that. But I also urge you to think of the elderly Huntington, Indiana newspaper editor who gave a sports editor job to a 17-year-old kid who had never taken a journalism class, never written a news story. Howard Houghton was his name. To think of the Bloomington editor who gave a 30-year-old journeyman with nothing of distinction in his professional past or presence an opportunity available nowhere else. Perry Stewart was his name. To think of many coaches, but particularly two whose personal brilliance brought a spotlight to his program that made a small-town newspaper with the countrified name of Herald Telephone a news base, both national and international. Bob Knight and Doc Councilman were their names. To think of a man whose business miracle had already been achieved, who reached out and gave a new professional base and a writing opportunity of a lifetime to a basically jobless, way past prime novice to his world. Bill Cook was his name. The representative of hundreds, certainly including my precious wife and family, and friends, and other coaches and athletes I covered and knew as friends, some of them dear friends, some of them gone and missed so very much, like Bill Mallory, John Pont, Rotarian Sam Bell, and Doc himself. And certainly I include readers, so faithful and understanding and appreciated. I urge you, put your own life in that kind of analytical, appreciative prism. And I urge you, as Rotarians, to keep doing what you're doing tonight, helping the world around you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Bob, for your inspiring work in our community, and thank you all for joining us this evening to honor Bob HAMMEL. We appreciate your support of the 3 Bloomington Rotary Clubs and the Hoosier Hills Food Bank. We sincerely hope to see you again next year in person for the 7th annual Toast. As always, it will be on the first Friday in November. And please join me one more time in toasting Mr. Bob HAMMEL. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bob.